All right, team. So we're so excited today to have the opportunity to think about how to set ourselves up for success, not tomorrow, not next week, but today, now. So we do have a very special guest with us, Dr. Erin Cook, who is going to help us and facilitate the conversation. Before we get started, I just want to make sure that everyone is aware of what College Foundation is and what we do. So College Foundation is a one-stop shop to support students and families to plan, apply, pay, and save for college. Everything that we know, we share it at cfnc.org. That is the main website where we share everything that we know. Anything related to planning for college, exploration of college, applying for college, completing the residency determination service. Maybe we have questions about how to pay for college. We have that available. So everything we know is cfnc.org. The website is also available in Español for those Spanish speakers. In addition to the website, we have a call center. And the call center really is designed for support. In case you come up with a question or a challenge while you're reviewing the website, then you have additional support. You have counselors and people who are ready to support you and answer those questions that you have. So if you're taking notes, and I hope that you are taking notes, grab a little pen, a little piece of paper, and take some notes. The number is 866-866-2362. In addition to the website and the call center support, we have field representatives in all the major communities. So we do have people that live and work in the communities that we're serving. And that's really, really important for us to be the eyes and ears and also the support. In addition to our regional reps, we have two dedicated statewide Spanish services representatives in case we do have some families that they prefer in Español. So that's really all about CFNC. This event today was sponsored by CFNC Spanish Services and our colleagues from Gardner-Webb and my colleague, Dr. Erin Cook. And I will introduce our panelist and our speaker today. Dr. Erin Cook is the assistant professor and the program coordinator for human services at Gardner-Webb University. Dr. Cook has a bachelor's degree in human and community services and a master's of arts in mental health counseling from Lenore University in Hickory, North Carolina. She holds a educational doctoral degree in organizational leadership from Gardner-Webb University. Her research focus is concentrated on the adult learner and moving the adult learner to a professional space. So how do we move people into professional spaces? She is a certified career development counselor, a licensed clinical mental health counselor associate, a certified Myers-Briggs type inventory facilitator. In addition to all of those roles, Dr. Cook has worked in enrollment management. She has worked with graduate students and graduate admissions. In addition, she also supports the community and she volunteers in several organizations. And also she has her own business called Artisy Acorn. So Dr. Cook, welcome, welcome, welcome. Friends and family, you are in great hands.
Thank you, Juan. I appreciate it. I want to take just a few minutes to let you know that I do want this to be interactive. I want you guys to be able to ask questions. So feel free to use that chat feature because it will allow you to share at any point in time, maybe an example or a question that I can answer as we go along. So as Juana said, my name is Erin, and I look forward to kind of chatting with you about your success and your journey today. My background is varied, but I have a heart for career counseling and working with individuals to really understand how their journey, how the skills that they've built, their experiences and things align with where they're looking to go. And that connects with my professional work because I teach within human services. I'm a guardian ad litem, which is a court-appointed advocate for individuals who are in like a foster system. So all of those things kind of mush together. So I'll use some of those as examples as we move forward. But kind of as we start, I want to make sure you kind of are connecting with the title of our presentation, which is like setting yourself up for success now. And I think a lot of times students think, well, when I graduate or when I get to this next step, and there are beautiful milestones in our lives that we hit, but there's also things that are important to recognize as we're going through that. And that can be clubs, organizations, like things that are happening within our family or in our immediately surrounding area. Those are things that are valuable. And so your story and what you're bringing to the table is unique to you. That's not something that the next candidate or the next employee is going to have. And I hope that those are things that we can encapsulate on paper and we can bring with you to kind of a professional setting, because all of those things are important. So make sure as we're moving forward that you're recognizing the value in all of those particular things. So experiences are coming from a lot of different sources, and with experience, we're gaining skills. And I'll talk about skills a lot, but skills are things that are kind of things that we're gathering that are allowing us to complete tasks or handle situations in different ways. As students, COVID is one of those things that I look at as being a really difficult situation for everyone, but particularly for students, there are skills that you really gained from that. For instance, we all had to pivot and learn things very quickly in a different way, and learn new skills to be able to handle the things that were put in front of us. And while none of us wanted to have to deal with those things, we gained skills from that. So think about like how we were having to adapt to new circumstances and things that were unknown, like being able to be flexible with our situations being different and maybe needing to try a couple of different things before we found something that worked for us. Many people were having to learn new technology very quickly. All of those things are skills that we gained from that kind of awful experience that we're still kind of going through. But there's other places and ways in which we're gaining skills. So it might be from like a cultural standpoint, there's something that you're doing within your community that you're working with a team, you're communicating with others. That could be in a club or organization, that could be church, that could be some type of other service that you're doing. So there's all kinds of places where we're gaining skills. And I think the important thing to recognize with all of that is each of these things brings different experience that we're then taking with us to a workplace. And experience comes in many different forms. It does not have to be a paid, like part-time position or something along those lines for it to be valuable. One of the things that I work with my students on a lot is recognizing all of the different facets in which we're gaining skills, and that from all of these things, it doesn't have to be a perfect match to kind of what you might be looking at doing from an employment standpoint, because the skills can be used in a lot of different ways. And that's what's called kind of a transferable skill. It's something that we're practicing in one area, but it relates to another. So what do employers look for? What are things that employers are really wanting to make sure that they're seeing? The National Association of Colleges and Employers does research every year where they are looking at, what are kind of the top 10 skills that employers are saying that they need. This is across a very large population of employers. So I feel like while it might shift a little bit for a very specific discipline, this is a very good general list. So problem solving skills. We just sort of talked about that a little bit, didn't we? How we go through and look at different situations and figure out maybe some different ways of doing that. Analytical skills, that can be looking at data, but that also can be kind of breaking down a situation and going through how best to handle something. Working with a team, communication. There's a lot of ways in which we are showing communication skills, and it's not just talking. It can be your resume. Your resume or your cover letter is an example of your written skills. What we put out on social media is an example of written skills. Although, text languages and those things are a little different, but I mean, if they're viewable, people can make a decision on you in that context. Initiatives, so connecting with like being proactive and connecting with things and saying, I think this needs to happen and I'm not going to wait to be asked. Your work ethic, that's one that has moved up the ranks pretty significantly. And I think it has to do with, we did some shifting in the last couple of years of working more like from a face-to-face or live setting to a home setting and different things. And some people handle that better than others. Technology, we work in a multi-generational workforce. There has never been this many different generations in the same workforce before in history. So you are working with people who are not digital natives, who are not used to certain types of technology. And while oftentimes when I'm talking with students, they think, well, that's second nature to me. They don't think of it as a skill, but to someone who's maybe in their 50s, who's hiring you, that's not something that they're always accustomed to. So think of that as a skill. That's something that you're bringing to the table. Being flexible, which is the same as like being adaptable. And then leadership. So are there opportunities where you've had a chance to work with a team, lead something, show those leadership skills? All of those particular things are areas that I would say take inventory on. Think about what are maybe places where I have practiced that skill, or I naturally do this really well. Think about, are there areas where maybe you haven't used that as much? And this is an opportunity where you can say, okay, well, in future, maybe that's something that I need to practice a little bit more. This isn't a one size fits all thing. I think that a lot of times specific disciplines use certain skills more than others, but it's an opportunity where you can kind of go through and think to be able to show I'm well-rounded. I have lots of different things I can bring to the table. Here's how we can start with showing that. Everybody okay so far? Okay. So we have different skills. There's different places where we're learning and we're gaining these types of things. And the way in which an employer is seeing that is by us documenting that in kind of a paper form. And there's a couple of different things you can think about. A resume is probably something that you've at least heard of in theory. And that is a document that represents your experiences and your abilities. And our goal with that is to be able to show how the skills that you're bringing align with what an employer is looking for. Resumes are styled. There's a look and a feel to them. You're generally taking kind of experiences and things that you've done and indicating, these are particular skills that I used at that particular place. And we're focusing again on those skills. We're connecting it to an employer. There is a phrase that I use a lot that's called a living document. And I know that sounds a little strange, but what I mean by that is that a resume should not be stagnant. It should change and evolve and be updated in order to assist you with best showcasing everything that you're bringing. My resume as a high school student is very different than my resume today because I've changed things and I've updated things and I've added new experiences. And when I added new experiences, some of the ones that I'm like, well, those don't necessarily apply as much anymore. You know, it changes. So my suggestion to you is as you're doing things, maybe it's an award that you received, maybe it's a presentation you did, maybe it's a part-time job or something. Think about adding that to your resume as you do it, because it's so easy to forget those little nuances. So make sure as you're going along that you're updating that resume. There's also a brag sheet. And this is something that I consider to be a little less formal of a resume, but it's an option where you can kind of discuss your involvement, your achievements and things. I love this type of form when I am working with a student and maybe I've been asked to submit a scholarship like recommendation for someone, or they're trying to help get into a particular program and they needed me to fill out a form for them. Having something where I can be reminded of these are all the great things my students have done helps me to make sure that I'm sharing those types of things. So it might be something that gives you a chance with a college application or a scholarship application to just share a little bit more about what you're bringing to the table. As we start talking about resumes and resources there, CFNC has some wonderful resources. I remember when I was in high school using CFNC, and it has expanded so much. We won't talk about my age, but it's expanded so much with all of the different things that are available to you. So look at those types of resources. It might be also with your career counseling area. If you're in college, there's a lot of different opportunities and people who are available to help you. And so making sure that you are utilizing and connecting to the resources that are available to you is one of those pro tips that I think can really assist you with just getting the most out of the experiences and things that you're bringing with you. Okay. So your resume, we'll look at an example of one in just a second. Resumes are a chance for you to talk about how the skills from your life that you're bringing are transferring to a potential profession. Those can include part-time work, clubs and organizations that you're a part of, participation in community service. I think that a resume is, again, something that evolves. It's a living document. So as a student, it might be very heavy on the kind of experiences that are coming from non-paid opportunities. And that might be job shadowing. That might be an internship. That could be, again, clubs, organizations, community service. But those are valuable experiences. So use those as opportunities to kind of share the things that you're bringing with you to an employer. And it's not limited to, again, that point in time where I have to have graduated to be worthy of sharing these things. No, there's a lot you can do along the way, and I want you to capture that. Processing resumes, especially for employers, is done very differently today than it was even 5 years ago. Most employers use what's called an applicant tracking system, and this is a software system that is designed to look for keywords and information that you are sharing in your resume through kind of an upload process. So you would upload your resume, and then they are filtering resumes that connect just with the specific criteria that they're looking for. So they might have a keyword search. They need a specific type of degree. They might have put in their job description specific things that they are looking for. And so the key with that is the job description for any position is going to have the clues that you need to ensure that your resume fits what they're looking for. So remember, I said this is a living document. You want to make sure you are tailoring your resume to connect with the type of position that you're looking for. For instance, me being in kind of a human services, like public service field, it would look very different than if I were applying to work in marketing or business, because the skills that I would use maybe with focusing on helping others or listening or being able to connect people to resources might be different than analyzing a situation or coming up with specific solutions for a business. So I want to make sure that I'm using skills, verbiage, and that I am highlighting my experiences depending upon what I'm looking at. So you want to just not let something like this filtration system, the applicant tracking system, catch you in a situation to where maybe you didn't take a few minutes to just double check everything, or you didn't make sure it was tailored to that. And then an employer never really gets a chance to look at your materials because it was kicked out before it, the filtered system sent a batch of these look like qualified applicants to the person reviewing them. I've had many students that are like, I don't understand why I didn't even get a chance to interview. I know that if I had been interviewed, I would have, really been a strong candidate. And it generally comes down to they got probably caught in this ATS system. So knowledge is power. Knowing those things exist and knowing that that particular process is in place for many businesses is going to be important for you. So use that as a chance to set yourself up for success. So I'm going to switch a minute to show you a style of resume. I'm not going to take a ton of time to really go into all the nuances of this, but I want to show you a solid resume so that I can point out a couple of key features, and that you can use this as an opportunity to ask questions that we can kind of go through what a resume might look like. Again, this is going to change, be updated as you go along. So the beginning is going to have your general information. Your name should be the largest thing on that page. Make sure you're broadcasting. This is who I am. General contact information. We're then starting out with a summary of qualifications or a kind of career summary, something at the top that's going to be similar to a really good introductory paragraph to a book that gets them hooked. We want at the beginning to share what are things that are signature to you, are important for an employer to know about you. And I find so many times that is the scariest thing for someone to answer. Having to think about what am I known for? What are the things that I'm best at is difficult. So I might say in this particular instance, ask a family member or ask a loved one, what are some of the things that if someone asked, what are your greatest strengths? And then let's put that in professional wording. Taking yourself out of it sometimes can make it feel less intimidating. So up front, 3 to 4 things where you can say, here's in general some things that are important to know about me that can connect. The order of these and what is listed here is going to depend on your job and what you're looking to connect to. And I find that that might differ depending on situation. So your resume might also be a little different depending on if you're applying to college or grad school, those kinds of things. Education in general is next. That's a chance for you to talk about either the work that you have done or the work that's in progress. So high school is appropriate to list until you get to a point where you've done enough college work that maybe college is the only thing that's listed on there. We then talk about work experience, or maybe it's just experience. Maybe it's just volunteer experience. Know that resumes, because they update and change, are going to be something that you can share what's most appropriate for you. So not everyone is going to have significant work experience to start. I certainly didn't. But it's something you can share. These are some things that I've done, and maybe it's just your experience is something along the lines of, I have volunteered here, and these are things that I did as a volunteer. I have job shadowed here, and these are things that I've done through that job shadowing experience. So it doesn't have to be paid to be relevant. Okay. Make sure that that's connected for you guys. And then, are there other things that are important to know? Maybe instead of a volunteer experience section, it's something that we're addressing different awards or recognition that you've done, clubs or organization that you've been a part of. For some of my students who are doing more international work, they list some of the places that they've been, because that's relevant to the work that they're doing. If you have, more than one language that you speak, this is a great opportunity to maybe list that kind of in the summary of qualifications and address up front that that is a skill you are bringing to the table. That's something that can be very valuable to an employer. So use it as an opportunity to highlight the important things that you're coming with and that an employer would want to know. Sorry, I'm getting back to my presentation.
And Dr. Cook, while you're putting your presentation up, we did get a question in the chat.
Oh yeah.
Should we be listing the hours for from like volunteer experiences that we complete?
That's a great point. The answer is yes and no. So there are times when, if it were, I did 10 hours here, versus I completed 150 hours. There are times when it is brag worthy. And then there are times when it's like, maybe they didn't need to know how many hours, depending upon the level of and that there's no shame in that. It's more of I've had students who have done like a rotation of experience to where they've gotten a little bit from different places. And if it's something maybe like under 30 hours, I might not list it. If it's over that, then it's a significant amount. I mean, that's something to where I would share that. For my interns, for instance, they're required to do 150 hours. And so there are times when I say, that's a semester's worth of work. Let's indicate that you really took a deep dive within that organization. So that's a great question. And it's one of those things, I think it's going to depend upon the situation and how much information can be gained from knowing a specific number of hours.
I can definitely see, like maybe in the brag sheet that you took earlier, how documenting and having that number ready would be really, really important, because there might be a scholarship or an opportunity that says you need a certain number of hours, and then you have that to kind of document it. So I certainly would recommend document so you know exactly how many hours you're doing. Is that also what you're thinking, Dr.?
100%. I was like, a place where you can easily recall that. And the brag sheet is a perfect way to do that because it's a place where you can continually add. And then, I many times am working with a student and they are racking their brain over trying to remember specific details to put on your resume. And I mean, I fully admit, Juanes and I were talking earlier about, we get into things and we forget to take that time to go back and reflect and think. But just taking a few moments to remind yourself or put that in writing will make life so much easier for you later.
What we'll do while you're putting your what we'll do is someone from my team will put a brag sheet example that we have already kind of identify so that whoever is trying to do that, they can see a model, some sort of example.
I love it. Perfect. So we talked a little bit about how employers are getting to know you. So one of the ways that they're getting to know you is through the information that you're sharing on your resume or your brag sheet. But employers don't generally stop there. A lot of times they're gathering information about you in different contexts. And this is because you, as a potential employer, are a representative of that company and their mission statement. So you, even outside of work, are connecting to who they are as an organization. And so they use opportunities of what is available to them, such as your online presence with social media, to find out, is this an appropriate fit? And that can intimidate sometimes students when they're like, I'm being judged off of that. The short answer is yes. I mean, we all look at information and are learning about people through what is posted to a public forum. Employers are going to be no different in that sense. So you have to think about and take pause if needed to look at what information you are sharing. That can be everything from the type of information that's being shared to how it's written, maybe even the tone or grammar, those types of things. And I generally say, think about what your mom or your grandma would think about if they read that. Would they cringe any? And that can help you with thinking through what an employer might consider. So audit your socials. It's an excellent opportunity to check the privacy settings of your social media posts so that you can lock that down as much as you can. I really like to suggest to my students to ensure that information can't be posted to your timeline unless it's approved. Those types of things can really help. And then you just want to make sure that whatever you're putting out there is not something that can be a detriment to you as a potential employer. So it's also a chance to brag on yourself. If there's something good that has happened within your community service work, there's an award that you received at school, post about it. That's a chance for you to brag on yourself a little bit. And there are social media places that are dedicated to this type of professional work, such as LinkedIn. So speaking of that, networking is one of those opportunities where you can really start to connect with others, that you can get a chance to see what's happening with individuals that you know, and use that to your advantage to maybe get the word out. When I was reflecting back, I don't think I realized until I really started talking about networking as a professional that every position I have ever had, from starting as a babysitter to the position I'm in now, I gained because I networked. And it's one of those things that if you think about kind of ripples in a pond, that you have kind of yourself and your inner circle, but then it expands. And those are people that you kind of know through your family or through other friends. And that's networking by connecting with others, sharing information that you're doing, or even putting it out there. Hey, I'm looking for an opportunity in this. It's amazing to know, well, oh, this person has a friend or an aunt who knows this person who works here. And before you know it, those are connections that can be made. I used to think of networking as something that had a negative connotation to it. And I've started to realize how much of a difference I can make through networking, how important it has been in my life with where I am professionally, but also how I'm able to assist others in what I do because I know people who do other things. So being friendly and approachable, connecting with other individuals, utilizing family. I have a big family, so I have a lot of network that I can connect with in those particular senses. Those are valuable things to bring with you and to recognize. It's oftentimes something that I think, depending upon where you are in life, we're not even recognizing the importance and the value of networking. So first, knowing what it is. Second, recognizing its importance, and that it's something that is to your advantage can really be beneficial. And maybe it'll go to there we go. So just wrapping things up, I'll certainly open up to questions in just a second, but I want you to recognize that you're gaining experience now. You're setting yourself up on a path for success now, and that those experiences and things that you're gaining are important to where you're going to be looking to go. Oftentimes, I think it was Steve Jobs that said, we can't often reflect on how our path has led us to a certain place looking forward. It's only through reflection that we can look back and say all of those things connected and that this built into something else and this led to something else. And that's something that I hope in future you'll be able to really be able to go back and say how the experiences that I gained in high school or the things that I did really led to other things, which then led me to other new experiences. So taking advantage of them, appreciating those particular things, and using them as opportunities to really set yourself up professionally for success is going to be so important for you. So I wish you luck on that path and on that journey.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cook. And I just remember something you said, and I carry with me every day. And even if you have a question about something that's happening, or if you see an issue or a circumstance in the world, that can be your why without even knowing. Like the reason why I ended up in all the different experiences in my life is because I observed something that was happening in my high school. And that led me to just have more questions about that. And so I think that it is important not only to have those lived experiences, but also those questions that come up on that journey. Being curious, right? Being curious. I love that. So thank you so much. So I think we are in a great place to let our participants see if they have any questions, any thoughts, any ideas, anything that they would like to chat about. We have Dr. Cook with us. It's a treat. And Dr. Cook also how in her previous role, she supported college students through this. So feel free to ask any questions. Could be about, I'm trying to apply for scholarships. I am looking for that next job. I'm an intern and I need some help. Like everything is on the table and it can be asked. So let me see if I can give everyone also the ability to unmute themselves just in case they want to. And then also you have the chat feature.
I'm going to share my email and my phone number in the chat so that if anyone maybe isn't comfortable asking a question out loud, but would like to follow up, that you have my contact info. I'll be more than happy to help.
Dr. Cook, this is Juana.
Hi, Juana.
Ms. Lita, good to hear you and good to see you. I did have a question. It's a question that I get a lot. Oh my gosh, sorry. I have my daughter here and she started grabbing the highlighters and took all the lids off of.
She's painting, expressing her creativity.
Sorry. So one of the questions that I get a lot is from our community is, well, I'm in high school and I haven't really had an opportunity to participate in extracurricular activities. And so a lot of times our students or even our families are a little concerned about the student just being able to stand out from other students when they really haven't had an opportunity to participate in extracurricular activities, or they may not be, or work, maybe they don't have work experience or extracurricular. So you alluded to this a little bit, but maybe can you share a little bit more about how can a student who hasn't had the opportunity to stay after school or maybe take on leadership roles, how can they maybe show some of the characters, some of the things that they've done on their resume, but also what are some things they can start doing now if they're in a senior or maybe they're going into their final year of high school or junior year? But yeah, I guess those are like two questions. I hope that made sense.
It does. So experience, it comes from a variety of levels. And I think that oftentimes there is an expectation that experience has to be with a high school club, or it has to have been a part-time job for it to be valuable. There's lots of different ways in which a student can gain experience, and I'll share one personally. So while I did have some involvement in things within high school, I was also really involved with my family. I have two brothers who were handicapped. And so I needed to really be an active participant in caring for them and being at home and participating in, just their general care. And there is experience from that. You are managing others. You are working to kind of communicate, or maybe you're mentoring or doing kind of educational work with siblings to do their homework. Maybe you are connecting or collaborating with your family to take care of kind of household types of activities. Those are valuable experiences as well that come from maybe a different facet than what we think of as traditional high school experiences. So that's, I guess, where I'm getting at when I'm talking about everyone's story is different and what everyone brings to the table is different. Those are things that can be important. If it's something that you're involved in, maybe a ministry or something within your church, if it's something that your family or culture has some type of festival that you have some part in, all of those things are so great to share. So I want individuals to kind of stretch their limits in thinking of what counts as experience and what doesn't, because there are many different ways in which we can kind of show what a person is bringing with them, whether that's to college or so forth. Sometimes that's also within, you're doing maybe scholarship essays or something, and those are questions that's a valuable thing that you can share. So think broadly, I guess, is where I'm coming from with that. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it did. And thank you for providing those examples. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Any others?
I'll ask one. um, so sometimes I hear from individuals that are on the other side of the table, reviewing the resumes and doing the admissions to universities. I hear from them that sometimes they don't care so much about what it is, but more about what the student learned doing it, or what the student, what qualities and skills the student was able to display while doing it. You mentioned, for example, like leadership activity. Like tell us about what was, not necessarily the activity. Like I was a soccer team captain, not so much important, but tell me about, like, what does a captain do? Like, what do you do? How do you support your team? Is that fair? Is that, and I see you shaking your head and showing the resume. I see it back. Okay.
Okay. So there is a distinct difference between indicating on a resume, these are things that I did, AKA a job description, versus these are the skills that I used to complete that task. So an example of this might be if you were at a front desk, you answered the phone. Anyone that is sitting at that desk is probably going to be responsible for answering that phone. The skill you used is that you communicated with other people and that you maybe facilitated getting them to the right place, answering questions. Those skills, the communication, facilitating kind of the process of resolving their questions or concerns, those can transfer anywhere. Those are skills that can be used anywhere. And so I brought the resume example back up because it's something, and Jackie, I'm going to get to your question in just a second. It's something that, like, if we look at this first example, I purposely scrolled up enough that you didn't see what it was that they did, but they were facilitating office policies and procedures, managing processes, demonstrating customer service skills, and representing the organization as a friendly and approachable first point of contact. Those can be used anywhere. It happens that they did it as an office assistant, or maybe that would be something if you were an intern and you were at kind of a reception area. But those are skills that you can take with you to be used in any context. So focusing on what you embodied, what you did in order to complete those tasks is the most important thing that I can stress with a resume. It's not about kind of, this person worked at Kmart as a retail worker, but they resolved customer questions. They collaborated with a team. They maintained a clean and attractive space. All of those things are relatable to other things. So don't limit yourself in thinking that the title and so forth matters as much as what you brought to that, the accomplishments and achievements that you did. And I spend a lot of my time helping students go from it reading like a job description of these are the tasks I completed to saying, what were you bringing to that? What are things that you accomplished in that? Let's brag on that. Let's take it there. So you can start with understanding what was the job description or what are things that you were responsible for, but put yourself into it. That essence of who you are and the skills that you used is going to be the most important thing that we can do. And so in understanding kind of differences here, there is your resume, which is something where you're addressing these particular skills. You might have seen or heard at some point that there used to be kind of an objective on a lot of resumes where we talked about this is the type of position I'm seeking or what I'm looking to do, that's really where a cover letter is coming into play. So a cover letter is an opportunity for you to share with a particular employer, I'm interested in this job. These are things that I connect to this job, and this is why I am, how I connect, I guess, with the mission of the organization. So it's an opportunity for you to specifically address, this is what makes me a good fit. And then you're giving those examples on your resume. And thank you, Juana, for sharing. Like I had the thing about like the resources, but I knew I hadn't found the specific link. So if you're looking for CFNC specific resources, the high school resume, there's so many great examples and things that are shared, and the link is in the chat. A website or information for finding particular volunteer experiences. I think that there's not kind of a necessarily one stop shop for kind of listing volunteer experiences, but there's some resources for that. And Juan, if you know of any, to be sure to share. First, if you're currently attending college, there are a lot of opportunities that volunteer experiences, work experiences, and things are housed within some type of software system. I know in our particular school, we have opportunities where there is a coordinator of volunteer experiences. So there's somebody who is dedicated to that. I think it also depends on the particular position that you're looking at, or kind of where you're looking to gain experience. This is where networking can be really helpful. So if you know somebody or can put the word out, I really want to get some experience maybe within a veterinary office because you want to explore if that's a good fit. I can't stress enough the importance of either job shadowing, volunteer experiences, internships to see if something's a good fit. I waited until the last semester of my college experience to do an internship, thinking that I knew the career path that I wanted, and quite quickly realized that was not for me. So I'm grateful for looking back. I'm very grateful that I didn't go into that particular subdiscipline of the field that I was looking at, because I was bored out of my mind. It was not something that I wanted, but it took me going through the internship to do that. So thinking about, kind of what area you're looking at. And then, for instance, if it's something within a nonprofit, we'll give that as an example. Most counties have a nonprofit kind of listing or a handbook that will say, here's all of the different resources that are out there. And then sometimes it's just a matter of going and saying, I'm looking for job opportunities or job shadowing experiences, volunteer experiences, as an opportunity to kind of put yourself out there. I'm thinking of things like Habitat for Humanity, or places that are always looking for volunteers. And then there's others that maybe don't have a formal program, but if asked, would be willing to allow that. So I'm trying to think of other options.
Yeah, and I always, the way that I think about those opportunities is making like a field trip within my community. Like, what do I have within my community? Do I have a church nearby that I can get some of those experiences?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a nonprofit? Is there a school, an after-school program? Depending on the skill that the student is looking at, and then asking people. That's the best way that I know, like asking.
Yeah, and that's practicing networking. Guidance counselors can also be helpful, that sometimes they hear of different things or know of opportunities. So that might be something as just asking around a little bit. But looking into it, I think, is a great way to help yourself get some practice with professional skills, kind of build yourself up and just get experiences that you can list, but also that you're just gaining the experience in general, because every organization, every workplace is different. Their culture is going to be different. They're going to have different things that you can learn from. Sometimes the things that we learn are what we won't do, or what, if we're in a different situation, how we won't handle situations. And I would say too, whether you're looking at volunteer options, whether you're looking at full or part-time jobs, sometimes we get answers that we don't like, as far as a no or something like that. Those are valuable experiences too. And the no's can often feel very personal, but use it as an opportunity to say, okay, I'm going to reevaluate and I'm going to keep pushing. So I have often learned more from the times when things didn't go the way that I wanted, more than the times that it did go the way I want. So I use those as chances to continue to improve myself.
And Dr. Cook, I wanted to mention maybe something that we not necessarily think about often, but nowadays we have what is called apprenticeships, and these opportunities where you can practice something very technical and get paid for it. That's a great way for many individuals. It's not the right thing for all individuals, but it's a great opportunity. And also for those individuals that are qualified for FAFSA, the Federal Work Study Program. I remember even myself taking advantage of that and being a tutor. I remember being a tutor, and that really clarified also, like you mentioned, like things that I would enjoy doing and things that maybe I would not enjoy doing. So I was just thinking like non-traditional kind of activities too, that maybe they can, you can get paid for it. Because it is important. So I understand. I know.
The gig economy is a big thing, and so let me explain what I mean by that. We find more that in particular professions, or just where we are now, a lot of companies will have people hired to perform one task, or to work for a certain amount of time. Like you think in music, there's what we call a gig. It's a performance. So that's something that we find a lot of times individual companies are hiring people for completing a particular project or doing one particular thing. And that's something that can really help you gain experience. Oftentimes companies are doing that because they're not paying someone health insurance, which is why we see it more now. It's a cost cutting measure, but it's a standard, it's a norm that we see oftentimes nowadays. And so whether it's that you're using, you're doing a gig, or you're performing a service, doing something temporarily, whether you're practicing and honing a skill, I see so many times when the hot jobs right now are things that we often take for granted, such as plumbing, carpentry, welding, etc. There's many different paths to success. Your path is going to look different than mine, and there's beauty in that. So I hope that you can use those opportunities to figure out not only what you're good at, but what are things that you really kind of can learn from. And Jackie's talking about federal work study. That's a great opportunity to use and practice some of the skills that you're learning, while also getting paid a little bit for it. My particular students, when I don't have something specific, they aren't working, they're studying, they're using those hours to practice for a test or something like that. So there's many ways that you gain experience. I hope that you don't limit your possibilities by maybe what you see others doing.
Dr. Cook, earlier, before we got started in this great presentation, we were talking about not only you being uh, a, um, a professor, but also, and not only leading a program, but you also are an artist and you are an owner of your own company. We didn't talk about this, but I feel a lot of our students have so many passions and so many, they're so talented in so many ways that sometimes we don't necessarily think about, like if we like drawing, could we include that in our professional resume, or guide us through how do we include those things that give us so much joy. And I noticed, I told the group earlier that you are actually in your studio. On the back we can see some of the tools that you use for your studio, and I keep this, you gave me this, and I keep it, enjoy the journey. I keep it very close to my heart every day because it's a great reminder. But help us with those sort of situations. How do we connect those things that bring us joy to this conversation?
So first, I guess something to recognize is that the skills that we use in one area of our life translate to other areas of our life. So for instance, my day job is I'm a professor, I teach, but a lot of my colleagues joke about how I teach creatively. So I have been known to do field days, and we go out and sling paint and do random things to just let off some steam, or to, practice things in a different context. So there are many ways in which what you like can be utilized in different ways. I would say, first, recognizing what brings you joy can come in a lot of different ways. If it's something that can coincide with your career, that's wonderful. It might be something that is a side hustle, or something that you're kind of doing for fun that allows you to have that balance. Let's say you have a very stressful or very technical job that just requires you to be on a lot. Having a chance to unwind, whether that's listening to music or something, can help bring that balance. So going back to the skills, if there's places where you can share ways in which your creativity or the things that you really that bring you joy and the things that you really love, I want that to be something that you can celebrate and share through your resume. So it could be something that you can, if it's applicable, connect to a job. For instance, if your job that you're looking at requires travel, being able to talk about the fact that you enjoy traveling can be of benefit to your employer. So you just want to make sure that it relates in some way, but that you're well-rounded. You're showcasing that I have a lot of things that are going to be important to bring. So my information on my resume talks about finding creative approaches to particular things. And I talk about, I don't really necessarily share that, hey, I paint furniture on the side, but I do talk about that I have ways in which I use my creativity in a professional manner. So I think that there is an important lesson in being able to talk with an employer or showcase through a professional document the things that make you who you are. So finding ways to connect that is important.
And then make a little money too. That's important too.
Yeah. Yes.
So we are actually coming very close to finishing, but before we conclude, is there questions, comments, concerns that the participants have? For those of you that are watching the recording, we'll put some of those links that have been shared on the chat so that you know exactly what we're talking about and you can access on your own time. This conversation will be recorded or is being recorded. It will be utilized as a resource. as a point of inspiration too. Whenever we're feeling like we don't know where we're going, I feel like this is a great place to do that. Before we finalize, do we have any comments, thoughts, questions from the panel or from the participants?
So I'll just reiterate, my contact information is in the chat and will be shared as part of the presentation. Just make sure to give me a contextual reference of, hey, I was a part of this presentation, so that I can make sure that I'm, understanding how we're connected. But I am the type of person who will think of questions like when I'm trying to go to sleep. So if you think of something later, I don't want you to feel limited to just this time, that if I can help with anything else, please don't hesitate to reach out. And then Juana and Juanes are wonderful connections and resources. So utilize them too. I hope you don't mind me making sure that I indicate that. You have fantastic resources within CFNC.
Please do. Please do. Dr. Cook, is there anything that we have not said or any words of wisdom for our students, families, community members that are watching these, and that they come, they're coming to this presentation for a reason? There's a lot of changes going on right now in the world, and we all need to be prepared. Is there anything that you can leave us with as we reflect and think about future?
I would just say, where you are, what experiences you bring, the path that you've been on is valuable, and there are things that you can gain from sharing that. The skills that you're bringing or that you're learning from those experiences are important. Your story is important. That starts today. It's not something that you have to have attained a certain level of achievement or a certain thing in order to be able to showcase those skills and the things that you're going to be building upon. So I would say and encourage everyone to start thinking about, what are the things that I'm good at? What are the things that I can utilize to be able to brag on, whether that's getting ready for college, whether that's looking at job opportunities, wherever you are in that process. All of these things are relevant. So just starting to recognize what you're bringing is going to be so important as you're looking at jobs, interviews, connecting with others, and so on. So,
well, thank you so much. I hope everybody enjoyed this workshop. We do have more workshops coming up on cfnc.org/events, and we try to have at least one every month. So I hope you guys join us for future ones. Dr. Cook, thank you so much for your time and your expertise and inspiring us today. I feel very inspired to go back to my resume. And
it's a living document, Juan. We need to update it.
And I tried to keep it, updated, but it's a great reminder. So thank you so much. I hope everybody has a great reminding of your day, and we'll chat soon.
Thanks, everybody. I appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Dr. Cook. Thank you, Juanes.